Hey guys, what's up? 2-Bit Jesus here, and you know, this time of year, we gotta take a look at a spooktacular video game. And I'm returning to a franchise that I've reviewed before. And that game I'm taking a look at today is, well, you guys already know because of the thumbnail, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it again. It's Splatterhouse 3, that's Thrace for the Sega Genesis. Let's jump right in. Splatterhouse 3 is a horror beat-em-up developed by Now Production and published by Namco. It was released in North America in the summer of 1993 for the Sega Genesis / Sega Mega Drive. Not a whole lot of tidbits were found for this game. In fact, I even went to the fan wiki and there's really nothing. What I can say is it looks like our development team further streamlined this franchise to fall more in line with a lot of other games that were on the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive. Splatterhouse 3 plays a lot more like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe than the previous two titles. So with these sparse tidbits done, let's for one last time on the Sega Genesis splat our way through this house in this review. Controls are simple yet solid. As I said in the tidbits, they really streamline things in this game compared to the previous titles. Though with the streamlining, I do feel that some of the things that made Splatterhouse, well, Splatterhouse, were lost, but I don't want to bang too hard on this game because it is a solid game in its own right. You could just tell that the series was moving away from some of its core ideals. Borrowing heavily from other beat-em-ups, no longer are you just moving left to right, you can move up and down in stages. You can perform combos, but honestly I just like mashing buttons and punching the shit out of monsters. Weapons make their return, though I didn't use them as much as I did in previous titles. Borrowing from Altered Beast, you have a power-up that makes you into this super roided out version of yourself. You can only use it for a limited time, and I would highly suggest saving it for boss battles. A brand new addition to the game is being able to pick your own path when you travel through a level. The game takes place in a giant mansion. You're able to access a map of the level you're on that will help you choose the best path. But be warned, some are dead ends, but they look like they're the fastest way to get to the final boss. And there are multiple paths to choose from. You are timed in these levels though. Essentially, Rick, our main character, has a family now, a wife and child, and when the house is taken over by the monsters, you have to get to the end of the level and defeat the boss within a certain time limit, or that family member, whether it be your wife or your child, will die. This affects the ending of the game. You can have a good ending, a not so good ending, a bad ending, and a very bad ending. This game is actually really brutal with this time. Fortunately, there is a password system, and all those passwords are online, so if you ever get far enough, but then you screw up and you die, instead of having to start the game all the way over, you could use said password system, or if you're not so good at the game, but you still want to attain a good ending, you could always, maybe cheat a little bit and use a password to get you towards the end of the game, and you don't have to worry about saving your wife or your son within that time frame. Enemy monsters aren't as numerous as in previous titles, but there are still enough of them that force you to change up your strategy, so you won't be running into the same old monsters over and over again. You got some pretty cool boss battles in this game, but some are forgettable. The ending bosses are really awesome in this game, but some of the earlier ones just don't hit as hard as, say, Splatterhouse 2's bosses hit. That's all I'm going to say. Like any beat-em-up game worth its salt, you have items to help you beat the game, whether it be orbs that will help your power level, so you can turn into that big roided out monster and beat the shit out of other monsters, or power-ups that increase your health. This game only has 6 levels to complete. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, wow, that's short compared to some other games of this era, but keep in mind that, one, this game is actually incredibly hard. While there are fewer monsters on the screen and even fewer monsters you have to contend with, they make up for it in their ability to kick your ass. That and the fact that most of the levels you're timed, and if you make poor time, you get a poor ending, meaning you have to go back and replay the game to get a better ending. So there's a lot of replayability with this game if you can get over the incredibly hard difficulty in certain sections of the game. While I don't think Splatterhouse 3 in the gameplay department surpassed its predecessors, it did well enough on its own. Gameplay gets 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. If it's not broken, don't attempt to fix it. The sound quality and sound effects from the previous titles all make their way over and are solid. The soundtracks are just as awesome. They really fit well with the theme that Splatterhouse 3 is going with and have a continuity with the previous titles. Sound is solid and excellent. 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Visually, Splatterhouse 3 is probably the most different out of the trilogy. Where the original Splatterhouse was an arcade game and a TurboGrafx-16 port, Splatterhouse 2 to me looked like they were trying to take Splatterhouse on the TurboGrafx-16 or even the arcade game and port it to the Sega Genesis, but also created a new sequel out of it. Splatterhouse 3 looks like a from-the-ground-up Sega Genesis game. The monsters are gory and disgusting, there's a lot of blood, Rick looks awesome, the overall presentation just looks really cool. You have cutscenes in the game, and for some reason they went with still images of actors. It's a little different from the previous 2 titles, but it's okay. The biggest difference I noticed was they shrunk the sprites down, especially of Rick, and they expanded the background. So there's a lot more detail in this game, especially in the background and the characters, than I feel there was in the previous title. The story is bonkers, but it really wouldn't be a Splatterhouse game if it wasn't, right? Our story takes place half a decade after Splatterhouse 2. Rick and Jennifer have married and have a kid, and he owns a mansion in Connecticut. Apparently, Rick has become very successful on Wall Street. So I wonder if Wall Street Kid on the NES is a prequel to Splatterhouse 3. Maybe? So everything is going good, and then that damn terror mask has to show up with its shit again. Apparently, an ancient evil from the past has returned, and it's taken over Rick's house, and Rick and the mask need to work together again to save Rick's family and destroy this evil. No matter how well you play, in the end you do defeat this ancient evil and have a final showdown with the terror mask, ending the nightmare once and for all. Now, there are a few different endings you can have, from worst to best, the worst being Jennifer and David, Rick's son, being dead, and then in the middle is either Jennifer being alive or David dead, or vice versa, but the best ending is both of them being alive. It's the happiest ending, and the terror mask is finally destroyed, and the nightmare is finally over, until Namco decides to reboot the series. This is a great looking game that really shows what the Sega Genesis was capable of, and also I think it's a great bookend for the original trilogy of Splatterhouse games. Presentation gets a solid 3 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Splatterhouse 3 was a pretty decent game. I did not, however, like a lot of that time limit stuff. It does kind of give a more arcadey feel to it, but also at the same time, I felt like we lost some of the things that made Splatterhouse, well, Splatterhouse. You go from point A on the map to point B on the map, or I guess I should say level, and you're just bashing in the heads of creepy, gross monsters. That's Splatterhouse, right? And I felt like that time limit added in some extra stress that just didn't need to be there. I didn't really enjoy splatting monsters as much as I did in the previous games, but again, that's just a personal opinion. I get they're trying to evolve and expand the franchise, and I appreciate that. And so my final verdict for Splatterhouse 3 on the Sega Genesis is a recommended look for the casual and hardcore collector of the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, because this game is fucking expensive. You're going to spend anywhere from $95 to $230 something depending on condition, and if you ask me, it's not worth that much money unless you're just really wanting the original card. Again, EverDrives, emulation, and also a game I'm going to be taking a look at here soon, Splatterhouse 360 / PS3. You can get Splatterhouse 3 on all of those systems, or I should say / those are the ways you could play, the 3 ways you could play Splatterhouse 3. And yeah, I would go that route instead of spending that much money on a plastic cart with a ROM on it. That's just my opinion, folks. Do with it what you will. And with that, Splatterhouse 3 is done. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought. Again, thumbs up, subscribe, ding the bell, that way you don't miss a thing we are doing here. And as I said earlier, I'm going to be taking a look at Splatterhouse on the Xbox 360. I'll see you then. Stay safe and play on.